Here are 7 practicing tips I wish I knew when I was learning the piano, but now you're gonna know when you're learning the piano, so you're gonna learn it much faster. Tip number 1 is using structured, divided piano practicing sessions. Piano practice is not just sitting down and playing whatever you want. It's best to divide it into certain structures so that you get the most out of your playing. The first thing you want to do on the piano is warming up your fingers. Now there's a few ways to do this, making sure, number 1, your fingers are warm, they're stretched, and you can do more of a dynamic warm-up, same as what we do when we're going to the gym, and practicing utilizing our muscles and expanding them and contracting them to warm them up. So a few things we can do with this is scales. What you can also do is play certain pieces very lightly on the piano without pressing it down so that you can get the feel of the piano. For example, if I wanted to play River Flows in You, but I'm going to play it so that the keys don't actually hit the camera, but I'm still pressing down on the keys. And after that, you can move towards some more complicated pieces to warm up, which you don't have to play perfectly, but you can use pieces to warm up as well. After your warm-up, before you move on to practicing the piece, I would recommend that you study the piece just visually and auditory before you start playing the piece. So that's 1, watching YouTube videos to learn to see how other people play the piece, or 2nd, if you have music sheets, take some notes down and do some visualization of how to play the piece before you begin, and that's going to speed up your process. And our last part of this is to actually practice the piece, especially once you did the last 2 steps. It's going to be much easier to practice, and just go for it. Our second tip is going to be a tip you're going to hear me say often, and that's using a metronome. What's the importance of using a metronome? That's keeping time. Why is keeping time important? One mistake you're making is you often play too fast. Especially if you're performing, you're going to become much more excited. So what keeping time is going to do is ingrain that sense of rhythm inside you so that you can play consistently every time you get onto the piano. Also, using a metronome will help you learn faster pieces because by playing it slowly, you'll learn how to increase it incrementally until you can play it at a normal pace. One piece I use a metronome to practice often for is Moonlight Sonata, 3rd movement. For example, this is with the metronome. Oftentimes, I feel like rushing past the metronome. That's why it's important to have it to help us bring it back on the track. The 3rd tip is practicing hands separately. This is actually a little bit counterintuitive because sometimes if you know how to play a piece together with both hands, you might not know how to play it separately, and I think this is a problem I experience as well. But the importance of practicing with both hands together and independently is making sure that you have that foundations down of what your hand should be doing on each piece so that when you put it together, you have no hesitations. So when you're playing a piece such as Turkish March, what I would do is first start with my left hand, and then try my right hand, and then put it together. This is quite interesting. It's nice if you can do everything well, but you see for me, I know how to play Turkish March, but I actually don't know how to play with my hands independently, but that would have been much better if I did, so you do it. Our 4th tip is going to be practicing without pedal. I know a lot of you like to use pedal to mask your mistakes, such as... But if I were to play that without pedal, it would sound something like this. That's why it's important to practice without pedal so we can have clear articulation and precision when we're playing. That way, when we add in pedal, it'll still sound very clean. Our 5th tip is practicing with focused repetition, identifying where you need more work and using repetition to solve the problem. For example, if I were to play something like this, you'll see there, I made this part really messy. So what I want to do with focused repetition is making sure, just only on that part, making sure I hit every note very clean. And after I have it, I'm going to put it back into the piece and try again. It's important to apply this for all of your practicing because every small part could have improvement if you just practice some repetition so that you can try different variations until you find the one that you want to use. Step number 6 is to record and listen back your playing. I know this is obvious, but this is so essential and not enough people do it. One of the first reasons is obviously when you're playing yourself, you're so focused on the playing and you're not actually that focused on listening. It's very difficult. Even if you are, it's very different. Listening from this position versus listening from where your audience is sitting is two completely different sounds that you need to adjust for. Second is, of course, standards of play. When you're playing and you're tired, you're like, okay, I can go through. But if you record yourself and you watch back when you're a little bit more rested and have higher standards yourself, that's where you're gonna be able to identify what you did well and what you need to do better for next practice session. Our last tip, and I think it's the most important one, and that's being mindful when you practice. Don't eat instant noodles while you're playing piano. Don't look at your phone. It's much better to have 20 minutes of focused practice than 2 hours of instant noodle practice. Found these tips helpful? Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and check out this video.